Washington, D.C., there had been lots of big arguments before, but this one felt different. It was like something was bubbling underneath, almost ready to explode. Outside, the morning air was hot and sticky. Inside the big, white building called the Rayburn House Office Building, it didn't feel any better. This wasn't just another talk about rules or laws. This one had real people's faces behind it. There had been damage, fires, even people getting hurt. At 9:01 a.m., the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, walked into the room. She wore a soft blue jacket. She looked calm but serious. She didn't come to joke around. Her eyes were sharp. Her hands are steady. She talked a little with the workers in the room. Then she gently touched a folder she brought and sat down at the front table, ignoring all the cameras flashing around her. Across from her sat Congresswoman Clara Taylort from Texas. Clara was already flipping through her notes. She was known for speaking quickly and getting upset when she thought things were unfair. She didn't come just to listen. She came to speak up. Her helpers had been whispering nervously all morning. One of them was even walking back and forth outside the door. Before they came in, the room was full. There were people who helped the Congress members, reporters with notepads, and even some car store owners who sell Tesla cars. They sat quietly in the back. Their faces looked tired. They had been fixing broken windows and cleaning spray paint for weeks. After some scary things happened. This wasn't just one bad night. It happened in lots of places. It was planned, and someone had to explain why. The head of the meeting, Ronald Kilpatrick, banged his gavel and said, "This meeting starts now. We are here to talk about the scary attacks happening at Tesla car stores and to the people working there. Attorney General Pam Bondi will speak to us." Pam Bondi didn't wait. "Let me be clear," she said. "We're not here to talk about whether you like electric cars or rich people. We're here because in just the past 30 days, 7 Tesla places were attacked. They were spray painted, burned, and one worker even got hurt just for locking up the store." The air in the room felt heavier. Pam kept talking. Her voice is calm but very serious. "Police have arrested some people. This wasn't just kids messing around. These attacks were planned. And we think online videos and social media might have helped make it happen. Some people are saying things online that sound like protest, but they could be leading to real violence." She stopped for a second. Clara's pen stopped moving. Pam turned a page in her folder. "For example," she said, "on March 17th, Congresswoman Taylor did a live video online. In the video, she said it was a global day of action against Elon Musk. She told people to show up and make noise. A few days later, a Tesla store in Chandler, Arizona, was set on fire. Maybe it's just a coincidence," Pam said, "but we can't act like fire is just a little rain." Clara sat up straighter. She spoke loudly and clearly. "Are you saying I caused that fire?" Pam didn't even blink. "I'm saying that people like us who have power, I need to be careful with our words. When people are already upset, what we say can make things worse. We have to be responsible." The meeting leader tried to calm them. "Let's take turns talking." But Clara didn't stop. "You're picking parts of what I said," she shouted. "I said I don't like violence. But I also won't say sorry for standing up against people who hurt working families." Her voice was tight, her hands gripping the edge of her table. Pam didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Speaking out is okay," she said. "But when your words sound like a battle cry, and you don't say clearly what the limits are, bad things can happen." In the back, one of the Tesla car store owners leaned forward. His daughter, who worked at the front desk, was sitting beside him. She had been there when the glass broke last week. Neither of them said anything, but their eyes said a lot. Clara wasn't finished. The tension in the room was growing. She moved her microphone closer. "So now we're saying it's a crime to speak up? Is that what this is?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp, like pulling a string really tight. Pam looked right at her. She didn't blink. "No one is saying you can't speak, Congresswoman. But when people get hurt after your video, we have to ask questions. That's our job." Clara gave a short, dry laugh. "You want to talk about being responsible? Let's talk about rich people not paying taxes, while regular folks are drowning in debt and doctor bills." Some of the committee members moved in their seats. One of Clara's helpers whispered in her ear, but she waved him away. "You can't talk about law and order," she said, "when this government lets people like Elon Musk make all the rules and hurt workers." Pam gently tapped her pen on the table. "With respect, Congresswoman, we're not talking about your opinions on rules. We're talking about what happens when you speak. And then something bad follows. Your words matter. The room was very quiet. Pam turned another page. Then she looked up. Her voice was clear like ice water. On March 17th you said, "If you think silence is an option, you are wrong. If they want peace, we'll protest. If they want war, we'll give them pressure." She looked around. That video was seen 1.3 million times. 2 days later, a Tesla store in Oregon was set on fire. I'm not saying you lit the match, but your words may have helped someone else do it. Clara's face changed just a little. She didn't look scared, she looked like she was thinking hard. "I was speaking in metaphors," she said. "Maybe," Pam answered, "but someone out there didn't hear it that way. Now people are scared to go to work." People in the back started whispering. One of the members of the group cleared his throat, hoping to change the subject. But neither woman wanted to stop. Then Pam did something unexpected. She reached under her folder and pulled out a piece of paper. "Here's a tweet," she said. "Someone posted this the day after your video. It says, 'They want our silence, we'll give them smoke.'" The post also had a picture of a firebomb. She slid the paper across the table. Clara didn't touch it. "That person," Pam said, "was arrested in Little Rock last week. He tried to start a fire, and he shared your video." The room felt like it tipped sideways. No one moved. Even the camera people stopped taking pictures. Clara leaned back in her seat. "You're using this whole thing to embarrass me," she said. "This sounds more like a play than justice." Pam raised her eyebrow, but her voice didn't shake. "Plays end when the curtain falls. But this is real. You can protest. No one is stopping you. But when your words lead to bad things, we have to look at that. We can't pretend it didn't happen." The chairman banged the gavel again. "Let's stay calm," he said. Clara pointed her finger across the table. "You're trying to shut me up." Pam answered softly. "I'm trying to keep people safe." It wasn't loud, but it felt heavy. In the back, the man from Omaha lowered his head. He wasn't thinking about politics or speeches. He was just thinking about keeping his daughter safe. He was thinking about his daughter and the sound of glass breaking at 3 a.m. But the tension wasn't over because something else was about to happen that no one expected. The gavel hit the desk again, even louder this time. "Order, please," said Chairman Kilpatrick, looking nervous. "Let's remember why we're here." The room was getting hotter, but not because of the temperature. It was because of everything that people weren't saying, all the things underneath the surface. Taylor took a deep breath and sat back, her hands holding the desk tightly. She didn't speak right away. For the first time, her face showed something other than anger, something like disbelief. She hadn't thought Bondi would have real proof. She thought it was just another media stunt, another political fight. But Bondi was speaking like a lawyer with a solid case, and Taylor knew it. Still, Taylor wasn't one to give up. When Elon Musk posts strange stories and makes fun of public workers, where's the anger then? Taylor asked, her voice quieter but still sharp. When he makes fun of workers, supports people who want to take away women's rights, why isn't anyone speaking out about that? Or is it only some people who deserve to be held responsible for their words? Bondi didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at Taylor carefully. Then she said calmly, "You're not being questioned because you criticized Elon Musk. You're here because 7 businesses were burned, and the words surrounding it weren't unclear. They were strong, planned, and emotional, coming from someone with a lot of power." Taylor leaned forward again. "So people can't be angry anymore? They can't show their frustration? You're asking for clean, polite words when people are being kicked out of their homes, when people aren't making enough money, and when billionaires are buying influence. Should everyone just be quiet and wait?" Bondi stayed calm and said, "People can feel whatever they want, but leaders don't just feel. They guide. They lead with words that heal, not words that make things worse." This statement wasn't loud, but it made an impact. Bondi wasn't trying to get applause or score points. She wasn't here to win a battle. Her calmness made it harder for anyone to attack her. A senator from Idaho, who had been quiet the whole time, glanced around the room. He had seen arguments like this before, but something felt different this time. It wasn't just about Tesla or Musk or Taylor, it was about something bigger. It was about how far things had gone, and whether anyone was still paying attention. Taylor's voice became harder again. "You're using what a few people did to silence everyone. You're making protests look like a threat. I didn't tell anyone to burn anything. I just called for a day of action. If that's illegal now, then say it clearly." Bondi's response was calm but quick. "I never said it was illegal. I said it was irresponsible." Another silence filled the room. The weight of her words hung in the air. "You know what I hear in your words?" Taylor continued. A warning to anyone who has ever raised their voice, to every young woman who ever felt ignored and finally found the courage to speak. You want them to be afraid, careful, and silent. Bondi closed her folder softly. No, I want them to be safe. Then a voice rang out from the crowd. It was raw, loud, and full of emotion. My cousin's in the hospital, said the man, his voice shaking. He worked at the Fort Collins Tesla Service Center. He got beat up by a group of people who called him a traitor. Is that what action looks like to you? Everyone turned to look at him. The man, probably in his 30s, was standing and shaking a little. Security started to move toward him, but he raised his hands. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just tired of pretending this is okay. You want a political fight? Fine, but people like my cousin, he didn't sign up to be part of any fight. He was just fixing cars. Taylor stared at him, saying nothing. Bondi looked at the chairman. Let him speak, Bondi said. The room was silent as everyone waited. The man's words were powerful, and they made something shift in the room. It felt like everyone was listening, really listening for the first time. The man was named Carlos Rivera, and he was from Pueblo, Colorado. He lowered his arms and looked down for a moment before continuing. Last Tuesday it was late. Four guys pulled up and started yelling at my cousin. At first he thought they were just protesters, but then one of them threw a rock through the window. Another one had a tire iron. He didn't even have time to run. They said he was supporting a fascist. They called it a pressure movement. That's what they said. He's got stitches in his head. He's scared to even get in his car now. He hasn't gone back to work. No one moved. Even Taylor had her eyes lowered, her lips pressed tight. Carlos shook his head. He's not rich. He's not political. He's just a guy who loves cars. He taught me how to fix an engine when I was 15. And now he's scared because someone decided that Tesla workers were the enemy. His voice cracked on the last word. Bondi didn't speak. She just let Carlos talk. And when he finished, she did something no one expected. She turned to the chairman. With permission, she said, I'd like to give some of my time to hear more from Mr. Rivera. His story is important. Chairman Kilpatrick looked surprised, but he nodded. Granted. Taylor shifted in her seat, looking unsure. She was caught between sticking to her beliefs and facing the reality of what had just been said. Carlos cleared his throat and looked down at his shoes. I'm not blaming anyone here, he said quietly. But when leaders talk, people listen. Some people don't understand the difference between peaceful action and violent action. They don't stop to think. My aunt keeps playing that video over and over. She keeps thinking that if he had stayed home that night, none of this would have happened. Maybe she's wrong. Maybe not. Taylor looked away, her expression unreadable. I just want it to stop, Carlos said softly. Bondi spoke again, her voice gentle. So do I. The room took a deep breath. Even the chairman seemed moved. He rubbed his temples and said, Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Your words are noted. Security escorted Carlos back to his seat. He was tired, not ashamed, but exhausted, like the kind of tired that sits deep in your bones. Something had changed in the room. Taylor didn't give up her position, but the fire in her eyes had dimmed. It was replaced by something heavier, maybe guilt, maybe understanding. She adjusted her microphone and spoke again, her voice softer now. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I wanted people to pay attention to what's happening to working people. But I see now that when you speak in anger, you don't always control how people hear it. Bondi nodded once. That's the whole point. But the meeting wasn't over yet. There was still more to come. The most important evidence hadn't been shown yet. When the chairman called for a break, the mood in the room had changed. People weren't shouting anymore. They were listening, processing. Bondi stayed in her seat, flipping through her notes, calm and patient. She wasn't rattled by Taylor's energy or the cameras. She wasn't shaken by the emotional outburst. Her calmness was planned. Every move, every pause had a purpose. Taylor stood behind her chair, pacing for a moment. Her staff whispered in her ear, handing her a phone. She read the paper, blinked hard, then put it face down on the table. When the meeting started again, everything felt different. The air was cooler, but also heavier. Chairman Reynolds leaned toward the microphone. Let's get back to the topic, he said. Miss Bondi, you may continue. Bondi nodded and turned to another page in her binder. I understand the argument, she said. Some people think that people in power should be open to criticism, that we should be accountable to the people we serve. I agree with that. But what I don't agree with is people using their words in a way that causes harm, even if it's not on purpose. She let her words sit for a moment. Since March 17th, she continued, Federal agents have stopped 7 threats against Tesla. 5 people have been arrested and 2 are still being investigated. In each case, the people involved were not acting alone. Bondi held up a paper and showed it to everyone. Here's a screenshot from a private chat group. One of the people in the group posted, "Congresswoman Taylor says it's time to hurt them where it matters. Let's give her a show." This person was arrested last week in Shreveport with homemade bombs in his car. There were gasps from the crowd. Taylor looked down at the table, her fingers tapping slowly and unevenly. Bondi didn't stop. "You wanted to raise awareness and you did. But when you send a message to thousands of strangers, you don't control how it's received. That's not censorship. It's just how things work." Taylor didn't seem happy, but she didn't say anything. She straightened in her seat and cleared her throat. "I know that my words can be misunderstood, but where was the same concern when workers were threatened for supporting unions? Where was the protection for hospitals that got bomb threats because they helped women get reproductive care?" Bondi looked up at her. It was there. "You just didn't like the news stories about it." Some people murmured and the tension in the room grew, but Bondi kept going. "This isn't about politics. It's about how words spread. Fire is fire. It doesn't care who started it. It just spreads." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Taylor broke the silence. "I'm not perfect, but I'm not a bad person." "No one said you were," Bondi replied. "But responsibility isn't about blame. It's about asking, could I have done better? That's what I ask myself every day." Even Chairman Reynolds, who was supposed to stay neutral, seemed moved. The room was quiet for a long time. It was the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. Finally, a representative from Ohio spoke up. "I think what's happening here is rare," he said. "Accountability from both sides. Maybe we can build something from that." Taylor looked up. She didn't smile, but she didn't argue either. Then Bondi reached for the last folder in front of her. It was thinner than the rest. She picked it up carefully, and everyone could feel that something important was about to happen. Bondi held up the paper. "This is a written statement from a federal investigator in Austin, Texas. It shows messages in a secret chat group linked to an activist group. These messages talk about Congresswoman Taylor's speech. They have dates and times. They show that these messages helped plan the attack in Fort Collins." Taylor's face went a little pale. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Bondi went on, "These people didn't just talk. They planned everything. They organized rides, found places, and even shared slogans, one of which was taken directly from the live stream. Peace got us nowhere. Now it's time to pressure." She carefully put the paper down. "These documents have been given to the committee for full transparency." There was a quiet rustling in the room. People flipped through papers, wrote on notepads, and whispered to each other. Taylor's voice cut through the noise. "You're telling me that some anonymous messages are now being linked directly to me?" Bondi nodded. "I'm telling you that in today's world, words matter. A tweet can turn into a torch. A sentence can become a call to action. We don't control how far it goes once it's out there." Her voice wasn't angry. It was calm and firm. Taylor shook her head slowly. "So, this is all my fault because I didn't say, 'Be peaceful' in bright lights?" "You didn't have to," Bondi replied. "You just had to think about who might be listening." The room went quiet again, but this time, it wasn't filled with anger. It was filled with thought. Taylor, who had been defensive all day, now sat differently. Her elbows rested on the table, her hands loosely folded, and she seemed to be reading the paper carefully. One of her staffers whispered to her, "We need to respond." Taylor didn't answer. She was still looking at the paper. Representative Langston Ford from Nevada spoke next. "Let's make one thing clear. No one is saying Congresswoman Taylor ordered the violence. We're just talking about how words can have big effects, especially when tensions are high. This is a learning moment for everyone here." Bondi nodded. "Exactly." The chairman cleared his throat. "It's clear that emotions are high. But what we saw today was rare. 2 strong voices, both convinced they are doing what's right, facing the consequences of their actions." Taylor finally spoke. "I'm not going to sit here and pretend I got everything right. I spoke out of frustration. I've seen so many communities ignored while the rich get louder. But if my words led to violence, I'll take responsibility for that. I didn't want that to happen, but I understand it now." Bondi nodded again. "That's all I wanted." It wasn't a handshake or a hug, but it was enough. In the gallery, Carlos Rivera watched the whole thing, feeling tired. He wasn't thinking about politics or public opinion. He was thinking about his cousin Javier, and for the first time he felt like someone really listened to him. Even after the meeting ended, the question still hung in the air. What would they do with this moment once the cameras were off? The cameras were still rolling, but the fight was over. The hearing went from conflict to clarity. Chairman Reynolds spoke one last time. This committee appreciates the testimony. This hearing is now adjourned. The gavel struck and it was over. People didn't rush to leave. They moved slowly, not sure how to handle what had just happened. It didn't end in yelling. It didn't end in a win or a loss. It ended with something rare, a moment of understanding. Pam Bondi stayed seated as others stood up and stretched. She quietly put her papers back into her folder. Then she stood, grabbed her bag and started to walk out. Halfway down the hallway, a young woman stepped next to her. She was just out of college, holding a notepad, looking nervous. Her name was Lily Parker, and she worked on the media team at the Justice Department. "Miss Bondi," she said, unsure if now was the right time. Bondi glanced at her. "Yes. I just wanted to say I didn't think today would go like this. Not with Congresswoman Taylor. I thought it would all explode." Pam gave a small laugh, not unkindly. "It almost did." Lily nodded. "But you kept your calm even when it got personal." Bondi stopped walking and looked at the young woman. "When it gets personal, that's when you stay calm. Anger and blame are easy. Leadership is about taking control." Lily looked down, thinking about it. Bondi kept walking. "I've been in rooms like this before. Tempers flare, cameras flash. But most people forget what happened 2 hours later. Unless you say something that makes them think. I think we did that today." At the end of the hall, Taylor came out of a side room. Her staff was around her and her face looked tired. She saw Bondi from a distance and their eyes met for just a second. No words were exchanged, but something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not friendship, just recognition. Later that evening, the news was split. Some headlines praised Bondi's calmness and clarity, while others focused on Taylor's refusal to back down. But in small parts of the internet, people weren't arguing. They were asking real questions about responsibility, influence, and what leadership really means. Back in her office, Bondi kicked off her shoes and sat on the edge of her desk. The room was quiet, just her and the sounds of the city outside. Lily stood in the doorway holding her laptop. "Do you want to approve the draft press release?" Bondi shook her head. "Not yet." She looked out the window. Somewhere, someone is watching a clip of the hearing. Someone else is probably arguing about it. And that's fine. What matters isn't the reaction. It's the lesson. She turned to Lily. "You know what matters? Not being right. Not being the loudest. Just make sure your words don't hurt someone you'll never meet." Lily nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." Bondi grabbed her bag and stood up. "Get some rest. We've got a long week ahead." Then she walked out into the hallway, past the reporters, past the cameras, and past the noise. She didn't say anything because sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give. If today taught us anything, it's this. Words are powerful. They can build bridges or start fires. And the people who speak them have to choose carefully every time. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.